Hey guys, and we're back. So, with the release of the Nintendo Switch, there were obviously games that have all been released with it. One of those games is Blaster Master Zero. I didn't know whether I should buy it or not, so I decided I'd go and revisit the classic. So today's review is on Blaster Master.
Launch title.
Blaster Master was released in 1988, and the company that produced it was Sunsoft. That company is known for making pretty decent games, and I've heard everywhere that Blaster Master was amazing. Of course, when I saw it out on the Switch, that was the first game that I wanted to get. But I decided that maybe I'd go and revisit the original, seeing as I owned it already, and I didn't really want to spend money on a game that I wasn't too sure if I was going to like. I bought it quite a while ago, but I never got around to playing it. I only ever turned it on to see if the game actually worked, but I never sat down and dedicated time to it. So today, I thought it was about time I tried. First, I want to start off with the graphics. The game? Quite good looking. It's really detailed and the sprites look amazing. They move really quickly and it feels very fluid. The only downside is when there's too many things going on the screen, it slows down. It's a classic symptom of Nintendo, but this is actually quite worse than it has been in other games. It slows down every 2 or 3 seconds. I think they were trying to squeeze out as much as they could from the Nintendo system, but in my opinion, they may have pushed it a little too far. As far as sound goes, the game's sound is extraordinary, and the tunes are really catchy. I know I say that all the time, but I can't help it. I've been choosing games with great music, and this game has some really chipper tunes. I mean, as soon as you start the game, that build-up, and you see the Sophia drive through that tunnel out into the new world. It's pretty cool. It got me hyped and really excited for this game. Blaster Master starts off with Jason, who is sitting in his room, and his frog jumps out of its bowl and out into the backyard. Jason, trying to catch the frog, chases it. The frog goes into a hole and Jason goes in behind it. After falling for a very long time, he ends up landing in this deep cavern. When he looks up, he sees the Sophia sitting in front of him. The Sophia is a giant tank from the future, or at least it looks like it's from the future. Either way, it's a pretty cool tank, so he jumps in and decides to use it to chase down his frog. Gameplay for Blaster Master is slightly different than what you would see in other games. It is a platformer, but it's also something that goes along the lines of Metroidvania. At this point, Metroidvania wasn't something that was common use. It wasn't a word that really existed in gaming language, but this game followed that exact style. If you don't know what Metroidvania is, it's sort of like combining Metroid and Castlevania. Hence, Metroidvania. Meaning that you have to actually explore, and you have to come back very often when you get new power-ups in order to move forward. So it's kind of a mix-up. You move forward by going backwards. But it all makes sense. It's full of puzzles, and you have to try to figure out how to get to where you're going. Sometimes you may not have the right equipment, so you have to move forward through a lot of struggles, get a new piece of equipment, head back, and now you realize that you can open a new door, you can break down a wall. In this case, you can shoot an enemy that you couldn't hurt before, and it opens up a new passage to a new area. Now, for myself, I'm not really into those kind of games. I know, it's kind of a disappointment. I have to say, this is probably the first game that I didn't thoroughly enjoy as I was playing it. The first time that I sat down to play this, I spent over an hour trying to figure out what to do. I actually had to Google to see where I was supposed to go. Because I beat the boss, I picked up the weapon, but I didn't notice any difference. I went into my tank and I shot, and I thought the bullets looked different, but I wasn't sure, and there was no way to tell, and when you press pause, you get an image of the tank, but it didn't show me any kind of upgrades, it just showed me a bunch of different bullets. So I was really confused. I drove around over and over again, until I realized that one spot that I had been to before was a guy that was shooting me, and I could now shoot him. I wish the instructions were a little bit clearer on what to do, but in the defense of the game, it is an older game, there wasn't a lot of memory, so it's not like you could have spent a lot of space explaining every single step. Another downside to this game is the hit detection. I found that it was way too easy to take damage in this game, and the worst part is, it doesn't give you any invincibility frames. That is one of the cardinal sins in gaming. If you get hit, you should get a chance to move away, and if the animal or boss or monster or whatever is following you, you should have a chance to be able to decide what you're going to do in order to prevent yourself from getting hurt. This game doesn't do that. I was almost instantly killed by one animal that I couldn't shoot. I couldn't really tell what it was. It looked maybe like a slug. It was below the Sophia's shooting range, and if I jumped out of Sophia, well, I'd get hurt instantly and could die pretty quickly. It was quite a frustration, or there were times where I had full health and one enemy could take everything from me in less than the blink of an eye. It did get me quite frustrated because I didn't know what I was doing and I was dying at every chance that I got. This game truly is NES hard. On the other hand, they almost all drop health refills, so that does kind of make up for the fact that they destroy you in half a second, but it's still not really an excuse. I didn't find myself thoroughly enjoying it and I didn't feel that it was always fair. Speaking of fairness, the controller layout is great. The buttons respond the way that they're supposed to, and the tank moves the way that you expect. The only thing that I struggled with is I couldn't figure out how to use the missiles. I pushed every single button on there. I pressed start and I pressed select. Select jumps out of the tank, so it wasn't that. I pressed A and I pressed B, it wasn't those either. I tried A and B together. I tried start select together. I tried start and A, start and B. I tried every combination till I realized you have to press down and then press the shoot button. I don't know. I don't really like the way that it's laid out. There are moments where I was kind of panicking, where I was trying to shoot an enemy that was outside of my shooting range, and I would push down, and all of a sudden I'm using my missiles. Upside is you can collect quite a few of them. Downside is it makes it really hard to figure out what you're trying to do. Overall, I did have fun with this game. The only thing that I didn't really like is that there was no explanation. It just throws you in and you're just expected to know what to do. I would say I'm not bad at video games, but I was only able to achieve the second level in this game. I got to the second boss, but it wiped the floor with me. I got game over 3 times at this boss and I got pretty frustrated. I really wish that there was a mini-map or something that would make it a little bit easier to figure out where you're going. When I died the first time and got game over, it sent me back to the beginning of the level. That's not a problem in most games, but in this one, because it's sort of a maze for each level, it's really hard to know where you're going, especially in the second level where all the rooms look exactly the same. I was finally able to find the path where you step out of your tank and you go into a door, but then every room in that path looks exactly the same as well. So I walked around in circles, and lo and behold, by the time I got to the boss, I had no health again. 2 hits and I was dead. So there you go, I lost an extra shot at the boss. The boss was quite hard, but I feel like if I spent more time and learned the patterns, I might figure out what I'm supposed to do. Now, in defense of the difficulty, I can say that at least it made the game worth your money, because most games can be beat in about an hour or less, and you only spend time with them due to cheapness. Once you learn the patterns and everything, you tend to be able to beat them pretty quickly. But in this game, because it's more of a puzzler, you actually have to sit and think. You have to figure things out. You'd have to draw a map. You'd have to really be there and pay attention at all times. I spent over an hour just figuring out the first level. Then I spent another 45 minutes in the second level. So just there, I got 2 hours of gameplay and I only got through 2 levels. I'm not sure how many levels there are, but even if there's just another 2, that's almost 4 hours of gameplay if that's how long each one takes. Heck, there's games coming out nowadays that are only 4 hours long, and they're multi-million-dollar games with very, very talented developers. This game had a small group and they were able to make this game last for a long time without always being cheap. Yes, I know that the hit mechanic isn't something that I like, but I'm sure if I spent more time with it, I'd get more used to it. I'd probably figure out the nuances and be able to kill almost every enemy without any problems. But for my first try, I did have a hard time. I can finally say with confidence, I totally understand what NES hard means now, because this game is pretty damn hard. If this was back in the 80s when the game was released, yeah, I probably would have really enjoyed it. I would have gotten great at it, and I wouldn't have really had a choice. You kind of only had 1 or 2 games as a kid. You didn't have the choices that you have now, where you can buy yourself multiple games as soon as they release. I'm an adult. I make my own money, and I can do that. As a kid, you were lucky. You might get a game for Christmas, and you might get one for your birthday. And you had to get the most out of those games that you could. This game, I think, would have really done that properly. I think they achieved what they were going for. Now, I will say, I'm kind of glad I didn't buy the Switch version, but I have heard that there are some changes. I have heard that there's now a save system, which actually makes it easier in order to be able to move forward. And I think I remember seeing that there's actually a map system now. That would save so much headache, because that was my biggest struggle, not knowing where to go. Despite my inability to really play this game, I think you should give it a shot. Everywhere I've read, it's gotten great reviews and people really love it. it may just be a game that's not really suited for me. I'm one of those guys that I get lost driving to the corner store, so trying to remember a whole map from an 8-bit game is not something that I'm really strong at. Once I figure it out, I'll probably enjoy it, and who knows, maybe you'll be there for the ride. If I can live stream something like this, I think we'd have a lot of fun. But for now, I've had enough of Blaster Master, and I think I'm gonna rest it on my shelf for a little while before I visit it again. I'm a little bit frustrated, but I totally understand what people liked about it. Anyways guys, until next time.